It's in between the grades.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the common council meeting to order. It is 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Weigel.
Here.
Varga.
Here.
Middleton.
Here.
Crowder.
Here.
Romano, absent.
In front of you are the minutes from our last meeting on April 24th. I think we have, can Tad vote for that, since he was here via video?
I believe that.
Okay.
I believe
know,
so,
It's a
yes,
gray area, but
yes.
okay. So we do have enough of a quorum in order to vote for this, or vote on this. So, any changes or questions regarding the April 24th Common Council meeting minutes?
I do not.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tad, seconded by Jenny. Further discussion? All those in favor show me the usual sign. Jenny, Tad, Walt approves,
I abstain.
and Dan abstains. Oh, that's right, we didn't have a meeting last time. Wait,
Yeah.
we had a meeting last time. Wait a minute.
Wait,
Wait a minute. I don't think those are labeled correctly. I don't think that was the April 24th minutes. I think those are the
No, that
minutes
was
from our
May.
last meeting.
24th, I think.
So, yes, I think it was May 24th. Okay. Can we just do a Scrivener's error on
Yeah,
that?
it was
Okay.
May.
Okay. Have we, I still feel like we have a set of minutes that we have not approved.
I think we got them all approved.
Are you
last
sure?
time.
No, I think we're
No.
missing one
I
still.
thought
Hold
we
on.
had
Well, let's look
one.
at these minutes and see. We did the April 12th, and we did the May 10th. So we were able to do them both.
What about April?
The other one, we were okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, I trust you, clerk.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is the public hearing for additional appropriations. This is for the local road and street fund. I guess I'll just give a quick overview of that. So basically, we did not budget for the full amount of the local road and street for this year. Was it 40 grand?
Yeah.
I think it's $40,000. So what we're wanting to do is take the 40,000 in local road and streets that is unappropriated, so it's money that we have, we just didn't appropriate it, and put that toward the engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Toward the engineering of the, basically of next year's road package, because we have to submit for community crossings this year, second round of this year, for next year's funding. So we need to have this year's money for the engineering of that project. Does that make sense to
So
everybody?
that's a prerequisite
That's,
to,
yeah, so basically they'll go through, they'll do all the measurements. This is A and Z, who we've used for the last couple of years. They'll go through and do the measurements. They'll do the sidewalk and ADA ramp pieces. They'll do all the material estimating and all that kind of stuff, and then put together that package for us to bid out. So they've done that the last couple of years because, when we're looking at I guess in past years, it's been close to $1 million. Well, actually, it's been more than $1 million in the actual package, if you will, for what we send out. Obviously, we don't have the capacity to do that in-house with all the other things going on. But we don't have a professional estimator either, or an engineer for that matter, so. So what we're asking is for that additional appropriation from LRS, the money we already have, to go toward that project, so we're prepared to go in for second round of community crossings. Okay. So with that, we will recess the common council meeting and open up the public hearing for anybody regarding that appropriation. Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing and bring up resolution number 2022-17. Can I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
sorry.
Motion by Jenny, seconded by Tad. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It's unanimous of those present. Please read resolution number 2022-17 by title only.
Resolution 2022-17, additional appropriation resolution.
Again, this is the resolution for the additional appropriation of LRS or local road and street funds. These are basically gas tax dollars that are given to us. Any questions, concerns about that from council? Okay. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the additional appropriation resolution number 2022-17?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Tad. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present.
Resolution just requires one
Yes,
reading?
resolution is one reading. What is that for? I know.
Oh, I just wondered.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, next up is Maria from Passages Easter Seals. Easter Seals Passages? I did that backwards, didn't I? Easter Seals Passages. And I just want to say that, first of all, Maria and I have met before, and she's just a fantastic ball of energy for what she's working toward. But I will also say that we put Easter Seals Passages off 2 times. So this is the 3rd time they've tried to come to this meeting. So thank you for your patience with us, Maria. Please pass on our apologies to Jason for
Yes, no,
for putting him off as well the last 2 times.
That's fine, I'm 2 months new, or
So-
almost 2 months.
That's right. So we would give you a little more time, and so no, we're
Yeah.
happy to have you
Thank
come and
you.
give a report and go from there.
Yeah. So I'm Maria Tittman Nancaro. I'm from Fort Wayne. I'm the new Community Relations and Director of Development. So I'm just going to tell you, this kind of gives you a brief overview of what's been happening at Passages. Basically, the 2 most important things that we set out to do with the merge is to raise staff wages. We did from $10 an hour for the DSPs to $16 an hour and then 18 on the weekends. Second thing was to offer new programs and more programs. So, and this is listed on here. We've got a couple grants going, and we still are really short-staffed, but it has helped. We haven't really found our niche in Columbia City where to pull the staffing for the DSP, so hopefully my position will help that. But it is, since we merged with Rising and Angola, and then we also have Fort Wayne, it is helping so we can pull different staff from there. So we're always covered. So we also are, if you could pass these out, these have some dates for the Changing Lives tours. We're kind of launching a new program, a new model. We'll feed you lunch. And we don't ask for any money. It's just a tour to get the community involved and to just show people what we're doing, get some volunteers. So it's really, really helpful. If you guys could sign up for one of those dates and I can take you through. And then we're asking for feedback so we can kind of critique it and make it more impactful. So, yeah. Thank you for having me. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions, Maria?
No hard ones, because I'm only for 2 months.
You know, the nice thing is for at least 12 months, you have the ability to say, hey, listen, I'm new
Exactly.
here.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, heck, I've used that for 11 years now. I'm new
You're
here, I
still
don't know,
saying,
so. Excellent. Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank you.
coming. Yeah, appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is ordinance number 2022-18. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jenny, seconded by Dan. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present. Please read ordinance number 2022-18 by title only.
Ordinance 2022-18, an ordinance amending Chapter 34 regarding purchasing for the city of Columbia City, Indiana.
Okay, so, so this is a project that has been in the works now for a couple of months, I think, at this point. Marcia has worked very diligently on this. We had some conversation among the department heads about, okay, here's the things you need to bid out, here's the things you don't, here's the things you can do, here's the things you can't. And we looked at our ordinance and said, hey, was it 2003?
It's been a while.
Yeah,
so I
it's
don't-
been a while since we updated our purchasing ordinance, and obviously, it's really easy to get to like $10,000 when you buy something, because there's parts that cost easily more than $10,000 for wastewater plant, water plant, etc. And so we started looking at that, and between Marcia and Rosie and I, we looked at the purchasing ordinance and said, hey, we need to probably update this to reflect current prices, not necessarily current as in inflationary prices, but current as in the last like 2 to 3 years prior to inflationary prices, and how our departments are working in that model. So with that, Marcia, I'll go ahead and turn it over.
And one more note on that,
Yeah.
and also updates to the actual code.
Yes,
So there's been
yes,
some
yes,
changes
yes.
to the code that allowed us to make the changes that we desired. So that was part of it as well. So now, as you can see, if items are in the budget, that 34.35, we would allow purchase up to including $50,000. That the department head may actually go with an estimated cost of $25,000 or less on the open market without inviting bids or anything else. And that, again, I put the authority in there, so you've got the code site in there to address why we felt that was a good idea. And then up to $50,000, then it has to be, I'm trying to remember what we did with that.
So over $50,000, if it was budgeted, I think it has to be approved by the purchasing agent, which is.
Oh,
Rosie.
purchase,
Yeah.
Rosie has to be involved.
Yes.
Up to that amount.
So Rosie's the purchasing agent?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The other thing, not to butt in here, Marcia, but the other thing that we talked a little bit about was about utilities, for instance. So, you know, typically, utility budgets, while we look at them, they don't necessarily get approved by the council. There's not a statutory requirement for that, right? We still include you in that budgeting process, but it's not something necessarily that gets approved. So between the three of us, we thought it probably makes a heck of a lot more sense to have the utility budgets passed by the utility board, which is the Board of Works. So at the end of the year, well, maybe this is more for you and Nicole certainly, but the Board of Works will be approving the utility budget so that we have that connection, just like you all have with the tax fund budgets, where you've already looked at them and you approve them statutorily, things like that. We kind of create that same scenario with utilities. So there's always that oversight. But I think the other piece maybe to hit, Marcia, is regarding when it's not budgeted.
Right, and the reason I paused there for a minute is because I would like to make a tweak to this. In 35.35B, I would like to say above 25,000 to 50,000. I did that not in the budget, and for some reason I left that out in that. So just to make it clear that if it's above 25 up to 50,000, that next one applies. And that's why I paused when I was sort of looking at that.
Okay,
So,
I'm sorry.
Just for purposes of the ordinance, when you're hopefully looking to approve, maybe just to add that, and I'll make that change then for the next reading. 34.36 amended for items not in the budget and under 50,000, up to and including 25,000. You can purchase at a cost of 25,000 or less on the open market without inviting or receiving quotes. So we felt that would be simpler, even if it's not in the budget, to try to make things a little bit easier. But 25 to 50,000, then the mayor must also be involved with the purchasing agent, with Rosie. And then purchases above 50,000 and up to 150,000, then we look to our bids and our quotes that we've had in the past.
That
And
goes
again,
to the Board of Works.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that goes to the Board of
And
Works.
yes, that's Board of Works. And again, I put the authority in there. The exceptions are from the prior, but because I was rewriting this, but there are exceptions in the code. If you just don't have anybody that's responsible or responsive in their bids, there are exceptions to those rules, and if an emergency exists. I'm trying to remember what B3 was, but I think it had to do with whether it's no longer in existence. Mayor.
Mhm.
It's what we don't have it in the law anymore.
Yeah, state law, it was struck from state law.
Yeah, I just can't remember what it was, but anyway,
I don't
something struck
remember
from state law,
offhand,
so
but
I
yeah.
removed it from our code of ordinances, and so that's it. So sorry for my confusion on that a little bit, but that's why that's why B3 was.
Yeah.
Was there a minimum before, or was there a threshold?
Yeah,
before?
so the threshold for department heads was it 10,000,
10,000.
I think? And then you had, I
It
think, Rosie,
skipped then, there was a gap.
there was a gap, yeah.
So there was a whole gap above 10,000 to, I think, 25,000,
Something
that
like that.
nothing addressed that area. And so we closed that gap, first of all. There was also a $3,000 amount where it was 3,000 for the department heads, and then I think up to 10,000 that included the purchasing agent. And then there was a nice little gap for some reason, and then it went on up. But I think I don't know that it went to 150 with those rules, because those rules changed then in the Indiana code.
So, bear with me, I'm clarifying, I mean, I know where we're at and what we're going to accomplish, but is there a limit of times that an individual can purchase like $50,000?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying, which is, okay, if there's a project, can they milk it out over multiple $50,000 thresholds?
How do you monitor?
That's what I'm saying,
And
yes.
You're right,
Yes.
how do you monitor?
Yeah,
So,
and I think what the intent of the ordinance was, and I don't, ultimately, some of that's gonna land on my shoulders, or whoever's in the mayor's office, the mayor's chair. Ultimately, the goal of this and the intent of the ordinance is to give some flexibility to the department heads within the budget to be able to spend the dollars that they need to get things addressed, rather than, oh, it's over 10,000, now we gotta bring it in front of Board of Works, right? So we gotta wait for 2 weeks or whatever,
Right.
things like that. So the intent of it, obviously, is to say if there's a project that's over $50,000, it comes in front of Board of Works. If it's budgeted, if it's unbudgeted.
If it's unbudgeted, Rosie and/or the mayor, depending on the situation, is going to be overseeing that. But if it's budgeted, it's going to be very difficult to do what you're saying because it needs to be budgeted. So they aren't going to be able to just keep coming back for something because eventually it's going to be out
so
of
would
the
it have a
budget.
line item associated to it?
Yeah.
Each time?
Well, so for instance, let's give it for instance, okay? So if, let's say, I'll just make up something. If the water department was gonna go buy X amount of meters, okay? There's clearly a line item in the budget for those meter purchases, right? So if it's over $50,000 and it's been budgeted, it comes in front of that Board of Works, right? So let's say they have, I don't know, 75,000 or, I don't know, 85,000, whatever budgeted, obviously they can only do that once, but anything over that's gonna come in front of you. So yes, everything's gonna have a line item. Here's the kind of caveat to that, is that you all well know there's things like a materials budget, right? If they're gonna go buy salt, or if they're gonna go buy gravel, or they're gonna go buy asphalt, things like that. There's not gonna be an asphalt, a gravel, and a sand,
Right.
line item, or salt line item, right? Like, it'll be in the materials, but yes, it will be accounted for in those budget items.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep,
So, just for
Sure.
my own clarification, so when, let's say Mark buys, home bases for the baseball.
Sure.
And it's over $50,000, I don't know how much those things cost. But, so he places the purchase order, and then after he does the purchase order, does that go to you, Rosie?
Well,
to
he
get
can't,
processed?
he calls me and gets a purchase order.
So you
Once he knows.
provide it,
Yeah.
and then
Once
he
knows
gives you the
money.
invoice then, or,
Huh?
and then does the invoice go back to you, or to him?
Yeah,
Okay.
I get the bill and I give it to him I give all the department heads the bills and they have to initial them.
And they have to
Okay.
code them to say this is the account it's
And then
coming
it
from.
comes out of the budget, and then,
Yep.
okay.
okay.
Yeah, everything runs through Grand Central Station downstairs,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you, between the three of us, this kind of got a little hairy because we're trying to figure out, okay, well, if it's this limit, if it's in the budget, if it's not in this budget, it's this limit, and then it goes to this person, so this is a confusing ordinance, yes. it's trying to clean up what we had, especially because there was gaps in the other one, but this actually updates it and modernizes it.
If you haven't already done it, I would pull out the original ordinance prior to this one and just read this one compared to that. And I think you'll see where the gap was and why the changes were made. I think it'd be much easier if you ran that comparison.
And so all the department heads are aware of this, or you'll
Yes.
be
And this
re-presented
Yes.
to them after?
Yeah, so actually, that is where this ordinance started, because the department head said, hey, it would be great to have Marcia come in and go
So-
through this purchasing ordinance with us.
So I made a chart. So I made a chart of everything, and I made a chart of all of this,
Yeah.
and I said, what's under the code, what's in our code? And it was so funny when I came to the 10,000 or whatever, and I was like, well, and we don't address this. But anyway, I made a chart for everything, and it just brought up a lot of really good discussion.
Yeah.
And then the mayor and I were like, we need to make a change to this, and so that's what brought all this about.
And it follows the DLG out requirement.
So that was the other thing, is following the state statutes. That is another piece of this, absolutely. So, any other questions regarding this ordinance? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-18 on first reading
So moved.
With the change to
I'm
34,
sorry.
35B.
with Marcia's noted change?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tad, seconded by Dan. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present. Thank you for that. Okay, next up is another fun topic. Do I have a motion to read resolution number 2022-19 revised and restated as by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tad, seconded by Dan. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present. Please read resolution number 2022-19 revised and restated.
City of Columbia City, Indiana, Columbia City Common Council revised and restated resolution 2022-19.
Keep going.
A resolution establishing the policy by which members of the Common Council, Board of Public Works and Safety, and committees may participate by electronic means of communication.
Marcia.
So I did this a while ago, but I believe that the addition I made to this restatement is on page 2, section 3A. I think, Mayor, help me, I think it's the last sentence, the reference 50% of the members
Section 3A. Okay, yes.
shall mean 50% of the total members of the governing body, not just those participating in any particular meeting. We had this come up at a meeting. The question was, what does that even mean? So I went to the code, and in our discussion, we decided to put a sort of definition in, what does that even mean? So that it's very clear to us, I hope, what that means. But I believe it's just that sentence is all I changed.
Mhm. Yeah, we had, it wasn't clear what 50% meant. I know that seems weird, but we weren't sure of what that actually meant. And so it's very clear now that it's
Yeah.
50% of the total body. The total body. So we have to have at least 3 people. We talked about this at the last meeting. I think the last meeting, maybe the one before. We have to have at least 3 of you physically present in order for anybody electronically to count. We cannot have 2 of you plus 1, right? So, and that's actually why we had to end up canceling that meeting, as we just didn't have a quorum that day, right? We would have if everyone would have counted, but were you the one that was gone, Ted? Or were you here?
I think I was here for that.
I think
I was
Jennifer,
voting
yes, I think Jennifer was the one that was electronic and we just couldn't make it work. So, and Dan was leading the girls softball to semi-state and Walt was having some medical things, so. So anyways, long story short, I just say all that to say, it was not clear, so.
And the original ordinance came from AIM. So we had, the communities throughout the state sort of adopted that ordinance in general. I'm not saying all of them did, but we thought it read well.
Yeah.
Until that question arose, and that's when we decided to add something to that.
Any questions? Hopefully we've clarified that pretty well. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve revised and restated resolution number 2022-19 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jenny, seconded by Walt. For the discussion. All those in favor show by the usual sign. It's unanimous of those present. Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 2022-20. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Jenny, seconded by Tad. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present. Please read ordinance number 2022-20 by title only.
Ordinance 2022-20, an ordinance amending Chapter 95, General Regulations of Title 9 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia City, Indiana.
So this ordinance change comes from last meeting, when it was brought up, as you probably read the minutes or remember. The issue was, what are we able to recoup if we have to go in and abate a nuisance ordinance issue? Marcia?
So one thing we got to be careful of always as a city is that we're reasonable in our charges and that we have foundation for what those fees may be. And we've always been very good about that. I've never had any concerns with that. But the problem was, it was like, well, we've got fees, we got labor, but also what is happening is, because of the grass being so high, we can't see what we're mowing. And so we're hitting metal items, we're hitting other things, and we're damaging our equipment, or something could fling out and damage other property. And this was a real concern of ours because of the tall grass issues in particular, that we just can't see what we're doing, but we need to get things mowed. So when you see the two examples that I put in the amendment here, that's why that's about mowers hitting objects. It's either damage to the mower or damage from the mower hitting objects to other property. But also, we went ahead and put reasonable fuel for labor, fuel, damages to equipment, et cetera, just to give sort of just a sense of what we might bill for those abatements.
Again, keep in mind, this is after it's gone over our limit. And this is also, is there a 10-day abatement period, Rosie?
Yeah.
I think it's a 10-day abatement period. So again, not only have the individual allowed the grass or weeds or whatever to get to a certain height, but they've also been then notified, and we've waited 10 days, and they still haven't addressed the issue. And so now we're going in abating. And it may not be directly the 11th day. It may be the 15th day or the 20th day, whatever it is. But we try to get on there fairly quickly because we don't want the grass to get to 3 foot tall. We just want it to keep it at 2 foot tall. So.
It's the question.
Sure.
But I've had people make comments to me. I wish they would just trim up the weeds around the house. The grass was mowed, but the thistles and weeds and all that stuff between them and the house have grown, 3, 4 feet tall. I don't know if it's even worth going down that path, but right now, we don't I don't think we have any authority for that situation.
For us to do that?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion.
Well, I know, but she's asking, are you talking about the residents need to do that, or that we
When we mow.
are not going and trimming up against the house?
I think they've been notified of the grass.
Right.
I just don't know if we could just send a comment letter to them about their trimming.
Gotcha. You're saying, okay, so the resident has not trimmed.
Right.
Gotcha.
If there's noxious weeds, we can definitely give them
I was gonna
notice.
say,
I mean,
yeah.
that's noxious weeds, and that's a
If there's
violation.
thistles, if there's.
In the flower beds, all
Yes.
that stuff, we
Yeah.
don't want, that's still their property.
Right.
Yeah.
That can be a little touchy, particularly if it's in their flower beds and they, that's a little tougher than the tall grass, or you're just solid weed beds. I mean, I think that's
Could that
tough.
fall under the other ordinance, the well kept of their property because it's clean stuff? I know we had that one, all the weeds and, flowers that was over
Yeah.
there off, but it was unsightly.
Off the Swihart?
Is
that what you're talking about?
No, not Swihart, this is over here off of, by
Oh.
the old middle school.
Gotcha.
So I just wondered if that could fall under, unsightly, I don't know how you say it. Because it's, where people have a lot of junk and stuff sitting up. Could this fall under something like that?
Sure.
Because it's not well kept?
So with, as you're well aware, with every ordinance, obviously our officers have a burden of proof. We have to show that it does, number one, it does violate the ordinance. Number two, we have photographic or some kind of evidence that that is a noxious weed. We have had scenarios, like you mentioned, where we actually called in the extension officer to tell us what was weeds, what were weeds and what were not weeds. Now, that was a much different case where it was a lot more intense, if you will. We had a lot more issues than just the weeds itself. But we do have kind of that resource to lean on, if you will. But yeah, at the end of the day, obviously, our officers are not necessarily the most, that's not the thing that they focus on the most. In general, the grass and weeds are generally taken care of, we're not gonna bug people. But if it's causing issues, that's really where the issue comes in, right? But when you have a resident who lives next to a house that it has thistles that are flowering, or they are throwing their seeds throwing their seeds to the neighbors, or things like that, that's when we start to really get involved, especially if it's over a certain height. But I don't know if I think we have some latitude in our ordinances, but again, it's not the highest priority of what we do, but certainly if it's impacting their neighbors or their neighborhood, that's when we start.
Well, I guess that's what I was trying to say, we
Yeah.
already have something in place to combat that.
Sure. Well, the thing that drives me insane is when you drive down the road and they've mowed their yard, but around the signpost, grass is 2 foot high.
I know where you're talking.
Yes, I know you do, because everybody knows what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, again, do we want to be do we want the city to go and cite that when they've taken care of the majority of the, I don't know the answer, right? The eye is in the beholder on that. It drives me insane.
Yeah.
Is it hurting anybody? It's not blocking a sign, it's not blocking a sight line.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, again, just for discussion.
No, I appreciate that, so. Dan, does that answer your question generally?
Okay.
Okay.
That was kind of more of a statement.
Yeah, I
have
understand.
some.
I understand. Okay. Anything else regarding ordinance 2022-20? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve ordinance 2022-20 on first reading?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Jenny, seconded by Tad. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present. We'll move it to second reading at the next meeting. Next up is Columbia City Ordinance number 2022-21. Is that the right number?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Motion by Dan, seconded by Tad. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present. Please read ordinance number 2022-21 by title only.
Woodley County Ordinance 2022-7, Columbia City Ordinance 2022-21, a joint ordinance amending the schedules of fees and charges for the Columbia City Whitley County Joint Planning and Building Department.
So Jenny and I, you
Yes.
serve on that, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Jenny and I serve on that board. You may remember, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Back in the 90s, the city and county joined together to make the joint planning and building department. And so we have 2 seats on that board. One, Jenny represents you all. Of course, I represent the mayor's office. But we've had a lot of conversation, obviously. The goal is always to basically meet 50% of the fee, of the cost of the department through fees. That's the goal, right? So then it's our taxpayer dollars that subsidizes the other portion of that. I think we're 25% of the cost because we're about, well, we're a little over 25% of the total county population. So Nathan was planning to be here tonight. He too has had damage at his property and trying to figure all that stuff out with power outage. So he did send me an email and said, here's some of the major highlights of the changes. There's roughly a 10 to 15% increase in building permit fees, higher percentage increase for petition fees. That's really based largely on the actual cost of staff and member time. Petition fees are still subsidized in order to keep them comparable to the area. Permit fees are close to the actual cost. They're still very comparable. As I said, overall goal of the department is 50% revenue versus revenue expenses ratio. And the effective date would be mid-September or October. This has been approved by the joint planning and building joint advisory board and has been approved by the Whitley County Commissioners. Again, I would say, I'm gonna speak for myself, Jenny, if you wanna say anything after that, please feel free to do so. I'll say for me, at the end of the day, those that are making money or are taking the time of that department, I think should be the ones that are paying for the majority, at least half of the cost of this department. Obviously, it's the developers typically that are the ones that are paying these fees. It's not John Q. Citizen, unless they're building a house or they're doing a variance or they're doing those kind of things. But in general, I think it's worthwhile to, I guess, have those individuals paying at least half of the department's cost because of the time and efforts they put in. So, Jenny, I don't know if you have anything to say.
The other thing was that, I forget how many years it's been, Nathan said that we haven't done any price increases whatsoever. And like looking at other counties near us, we were significantly lower than them, but we're also pulling more permits than them. So we're not bringing in the revenue when it comes to helping out offset the department itself.
Didn't this come up last year? Is that when Nathan initially brought this up?
It's been going on for a while.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
remember we had this discussion, but I mean, obviously, we weren't at this point. I remember him.
yeah,
saying
he
something.
probably mentioned it because
Yeah.
we did start having this conversation,
Yeah.
but we didn't actually do the approval of it till, was it May or April? I mean, so it's been a little while,
Mhm.
it was a little while in the making. But I think it's been 3-4 years since we've addressed those costs, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, I again, because we're a joint advisory board, because we have city and county working on this, or having this department together, that's why this is in front of you for your approval, as well as the commissioners.
And has the county approved theirs yet, or?
They have.
Okay.
Yes.
You have to think, it's only $120 for a permit when it comes to a new construction build, which is cheap.
Yeah, especially for the time and effort that goes into all that work. So, yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns about this? Okay. You have a question for Dan. I don't know, are you officially a part of this department? Because
I work directly under Nathan.
okay,
Now, when it comes to making decisions, all I do is draw the maps.
okay. So, Marcia, I don't know if there's
I just,
I just want to make sure that I don't put Dan in a position where it's a
no,
conflict
I
or
would
something.
just
so-
abstain because we've got enough here to.
You okay with that?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Okay.
probably what I do, and that
Okay.
way we got it covered.
That way
Just
it's,
better
yeah,
be safe.
Yeah, that's what I do.
yeah. So.
Troublemaker.
So, okay, any other concerns, questions? Okay, can I have a motion to approve Columbia City Ordinance number 2022-21 on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jenny, seconded by Walt. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. Jenny, Tad, and Walt approve, and Dan abstains. Thank you. Okay, next up is ordinance number 2022-10. We're really out of order with our ordinance.
Oh, my God.
Okay, can I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Jenny. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It's unanimous of those present. Please read ordinance number 2022-10 by title only.
Ordinance 2022-10, an ordinance amending Chapter 119 Farmers Market of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia City, Indiana.
So you will remember that we had Chris Lilly come from Farmers Market. And I know that the Ordinance Review Committee worked on making changes to the Farmers Market ordinance. And then Chris came and there was some disagreement on how that went. And I think then the committee went back and said, why do we even have this ordinance? Am I out of line for that? So-
Right, you want me to explain
Sure,
explain
please
it?
do.
So when they originally started, the city's always been very supportive of the farmer's market, that's a non-issue. But when they first started, they weren't fully organized and didn't have being incorporated and so forth. So the city created an ordinance to try to help sort of have it under the city umbrella for what they were doing and so forth. Well, now they're incorporated, and the committee just felt that at this point, to make it easier for them, quite frankly, why not just have them come like all other groups come in the first part of the year to say, this is our schedule, and we block off the streets, and off we go, and we get it approved by the department heads, and we're all done, instead of having this special ordinance when other groups are very, very similar in nature, like First Fridays, for example, they just come in and make the request. So it seemed that it would make more sense that we weren't dictating certain things with the farmers market. They're their own entity at this point. We shouldn't be dictating how they operate their corporation and so forth and so on. So the thought was, let's just get rid of this and then just have them come in and again, simplify things, but also there's no reason to have it under the city umbrella anymore.
Questions? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve ordinance 2022-10 on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tad, seconded by Jenny. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous of those present. Okay. Department head report.
So the day was a crazy day, like for everybody. I pulled into the park and our trailer had gone down the hill all the way down by the road.
Oh.
And I didn't understand why that was there. But it was kind of weird. It avoided all the trees somehow. It was in the middle of all the trees. But a lot of limbs down, a lot of trees, some trees down. And we talked about the Board of Works, street department's dealing with it, electric department's dealing with it. They have the chippers. So like, we will not be able to remove our brush until everybody else is done.
Yep.
So it's gonna be there a while. If anybody asks, we can cut it out of the places that need, if it's in the way, and remove it, but we can't get rid of it until we have access to a chipper. And so we don't have one. So, just so you know.
Mark, is the trail open?
Yes, but we had to remove a tree that fell down over the trail.
Okay.
A large tree. So we did that, but the tree is still there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we can't
You
get rid
just
of it.
moved it out of the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can't get rid of it. So, that's just our situation with having two chippers. Aquatic Center, an hour ago, there were 380 people there, which is great. We did go ahead and have a free night from 4 to 7. Thought that would be nice since people will have air conditioning, just kind of do something to get them out of the house. We are going to do 4 more free nights throughout the rest of the summer that will be advertised, and they're going to be in the evening hours, so it's not our busiest time of the day. So kind of think that'd be nice for people to be a part of that. Splash Pad's also very busy. Our chemical building was blown over last night, which pulled out the electric. Also, there was no chemical getting treated. Probably shouldn't have been open. Mike Cook said we're going to do it, so thank you, Mike. But it was very busy today, and that people would not have been happy if we couldn't have had it there. But we had our games canceled for tonight because of the heat, and also people have a lot of stuff at home they need to do. So just the guys, my staff have been great. Been very busy. It's nice having our high school kids back. They can get a lot of projects done. I don't think people really understand that with the way our schedule is with 4 full-time maintenance, basically we have 2 guys that clean bathrooms every single day till lunch, and 2 guys that get fields ready every single day till lunch. So other projects are, if you don't have graffiti or other things that come up, you really can't really do those very quickly, just because we just don't have manpower until we have kids out of school. So staff's been great. It's been good having them back. So.
Questions? Thank you. Marcia?
Nothing.
Rosie?
Nothing.
Okay, let me try to give you a quick breakdown. I was a little long-winded in board work, so I'm gonna try to make this quick. Street and electric were out about 10:45, 11 o'clock last night after the big, ginormous derecho windstorm came through. And our electric department is probably gonna be closing it down here in a few, I'm gonna guess maybe within the next hour or so. They have been going straight since 11 o'clock last night. So we are sending them home. There are residents that are still gonna be without power from Columbia City Municipal Electric. I think last I checked, we were around 400. We're probably less than that right now of homes that are still out. We're gonna come back in early tomorrow morning and try to keep working on those. A lot of our county lines are just destroyed, and so we are rebuilding. At Northeastern RMC is doing the same thing. Their bigger issue actually has to do with the transmission line that comes from AEP and feeds the substation. They have also said that it will be tomorrow before the majority of those people that are out will be back on. Eric Young and I have chatted today, the CEO of Northeastern, and we'll keep in contact together. Speaking of that transmission line, we typically have 2 AEP feeds that come into the city. That allows us to balance the load. Since that transmission line is down, we have 1 line left. And so with tomorrow's heat, we're really concerned that the loading we may overload it. So if that happens, we will be trying to figure out how to lessen the load. So we are asking our residents to help conserve power, especially between 11 and 4, because that's the peak time, because that's when the heat is and that's when everyone's working and machines are humming and all kinds of things like that. So we just don't want a total meltdown of our system, because then everybody's out. So we're going to try to figure that out. We're hopeful it doesn't have to happen, but we're not 100% sure that it won't. Okay, so just so you're aware of that. Again, typically not an issue when we have 2 feeds. We only have 1 feed. Street department was out again, like I said, 11 o'clock last night. They went home about 2. They got I think they got all the streets open from the trees that had fallen over. They came in at 6 this morning. We had 1 crew working on the pour that we had already scheduled for the concrete out in front of City Hall. We have 1 more pour. It should happen tomorrow morning. And I think we're supposed to be done at that point, hopefully. But the other crew was out, and they got a whole 2 streets done when it comes to chipping of limbs. So lots of debris. Obviously, health and safety of our employees, electric, park, street, water, everybody. That is first and foremost. And when heat indexes of 110, whatever we're supposed to get tomorrow, we're going to be watching that really carefully. So I say this, limbs are not the highest priority. Our employee safety is. So limbs may sit there until next week. In fact, I know they'll sit there till next week, but the matter of how much we get done tomorrow is completely up to the health and safety of our employees. Along that line, we had a water main break on Holden Road. I forgot to mention this before. Had a water main break on Holden Road at the same time today. So it was pretty much sky is falling everywhere. But last night, I came in and our dispatchers, we had 2 or 3 that were on duty. We had 3 more that came in. They handled it like champs. So we had so many people calling in. Just as a reminder to the public, we have we've invested in a automatic metering system, so we know when your house is out before you can call us. We know when all those power outages happen, okay? So you don't need to call dispatch when that happens, we know, and we're on it. So obviously police and fire were out doing their thing too, so it's just gonna be a constant process to try to get everyone back on, try to get all those streets or all the limbs picked up and all that stuff. It's going to be an ongoing thing. So just be prepared for that. That's taking up all the capacity we have right now. I will tell you, I did see that our emergency management has worked with the American Red Cross to open up a kind of a overnight cooling shelter, cooling station, if you will. So just want to say to the public, like, if there's anybody that needs to go somewhere for the night to sleep, the Red Cross is putting that together along with the county EMA. So thanks to Amy Biggs for all of her hard work on that. I know there's more people that I should be thanking. It's just hard for me to remember all those things at this moment, so. Other than that, obviously, lots of things are happening around the city. Good stuff. We had Culver's groundbreaking this afternoon. Very hot, but still an exciting thing. And they are hoping that they'll be open by December. Okay, so I think that's probably all. CIP committee meeting will be after this. Well,
Nothing.
Dan,
Perfect, sir.
congratulations, by the way, on semi-state.
Oh,
I know you guys worked hard and just came up a little bit short there, but I know you guys kicked some rear. So congratulations to you and your team.
Kids are great.
Yep. Thank you. Tad.
I have nothing.
Okay. Jenny.
Nothing.
Audience.
I was wondering, you said you had an automated system. How far reaching is that? Is that just the city or the county or?
That is all of our Columbia City Electric customers, minus like, I'm gonna say there's like 15 or 20 that are called three-phase meters that are the big machining shops, things like that. So every single one of our city electric customers has an automatic meter. So we know before they do that there's a problem. Yes. Any other questions? No? Okay. Melanie, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Melanie Love. I live in Columbia City.
Yeah? Yeah, that's who she is. So, thank you. Okay, well, hearing nothing else, we will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Righty.